Hello, this is Modern Master Art, and let's get straight into this picture, which is my James Bond poster drawing from the original 1962 film of the Bond movies, which is Dr. No, starring Sean Connery. Now, the reason I did this picture in the first place was it was originally going to be a portrait of Sean Connery, because when he passed away, I wanted to do some sort of artwork, because it's always got an excuse to do some sort of portrait work when someone passes away. And obviously I loved Connery over the years growing up as a lad watching the Bond movies, so I was going to do just a simple portrait, possibly involved Aston Martin DB5. Then I decided to make it into a movie poster. So obviously Connery is the largest picture on this poster. This head took me about 35 hours just on its own, and it took that amount of time, even though it's not a massive head to draw. I just wanted to make sure I got the detail right, because obviously it's Sean Connery drawing. You've got to make it look right. So many people have watched his films over the years that anything that's wrong, someone's going to pick that out. And I wanted to do justice to the pictures, because again, being a massive Bond fan, I wanted to make it look as good as it could. Now, trying to do this was a challenge in that you're trying to get that vintage look, which isn't too hard when it's a film from the 60s, but trying to draw it and make it into a movie poster, that's a different thing altogether. So it's trying to get the tanned complexion on his face, that weather-beaten look that he has, of the worldly, well-travelled man. And this picture of him, I wanted to do, because it's the first scene that you see of him when he basically introduces himself to the world, and he's got that cigarette in his mouth. And I know we're in the healthy, health conscious society, but he looks really cool when he lights that cigarette. I think there's no cooler cigarette lighting scene in movie. I know there's a lot of people who beg to differ on that, but actually there is no cooler scene of a person lighting a cigarette than when he does it in that movie and says, the words Bond, James Bond. It's just super cool. So yeah, I did him in his tux where he's playing at the casino, this private members club that you see at the beginning, and then I thought I'd just add a simple background, because if I did the background from the film, you would have no context to what was seen behind it, and it would look a little bit silly. So I just opted for a plain, simple grey sort of mixed background. Now, the second portrait, I decided to do a female, and because of the iconic image of her coming out of the water, obviously this is Ursula Andress, who plays Honey Rider. Now, everyone remembers that scene where she comes out of the water in that white bikini, and I wanted to do something that was of that scene, but not the stuff that everyone normally sees or draws or puts in a picture. But it is her after she's come out of the water, and it just sort of gives that character to her when I've drawn it. So basically I wanted to do it because it's got the skin on it where it's wet, it's come out of the water, you've got the sheen from the right hand side, it's reflecting the sand and everything else that's there, and it's trying to get into that picture the fact that her hair is wet and that her face is wet and she's just come out of the sea. And it's no easy thing to do, really, to sort of draw that. But yeah, as she's one of the most iconic, if not the most iconic Bond girl, I'd argue, I thought she's got to go on the movie poster. And just that expression where she's sort of, it just shows all of her features off to the best that they can do from that scene. And the two light sources, as I say, you've got the sunlight from one side and the reflection from the sand, the sun reflecting off her jaw underneath, and it gives an opportunity to show that sheen from the water on her face and the fact that it's a hot place that she's in. And trying to do that, it takes a long time. This took probably not a dissimilar amount of time than it did to draw Bond's face, believe it or not, but that's because of trying to achieve that quality of the flesh and the amount of blending that it takes to bring that together and make it look the way it does. So all of these portraits are all sectioned off, and obviously behind her you'll see the sky being drawn pretty soon, and it just gives a little bit of context to what you're seeing in it, and it helps you to understand what you're looking at a bit easier. Even though the picture looks good now, it always looks better with the background, so you can see exactly what you're looking at and understand the location they're in. So obviously I did a couple of the backgrounds. In fact, every picture I did, apart from Bond, I put the backgrounds with them from the scenes they were in. And the other one I wanted to do was Quarrel. So Quarrel in the Bond movies, in the original films, he comes first in Doctor No. And actually, if you read the books, they're in a different order. And he comes originally in Live and Let Die, which in the books is before Doctor No. And he doesn't get the credit I think he should get in the movie, because basically, in the books, Quarrel and Bond are already friends. And Quarrel teaches him diving techniques and gives him, gets his fitness up for swimming for this operation that he needs to do, and they become really good friends. And they meet up again in Doctor No, but in the film that doesn't happen. In the film, you're basically meeting him for the first time, and because of his relationship to Bond and the fact that he helps him and helps him succeed in the mission and trains him, they become good friends. I just thought he doesn't get the credit he deserves for his character. And I really like Quarrel's character in the Doctor No movie, but it doesn't get enough recognition for what he does to help Bond. And I thought it's an opportunity to draw another well-weathered, world-weary face, and the guy who played him, John Kitzmiller, does a great job of portraying Quarrel. But it's just so you can get the two different sorts of lighting on the flesh tones. So you've got the light from the left-hand side of his face, where there's a light behind him at the bar, and obviously the ambient lighting from the front. So that's what I try and do in all the portraits. So you've got at least, if it's not just one light source, there's two light sources, just so you can get the contrast between the skin tones and the reflection on the skins and everything. And it really shows off the skin on his face, I think, a lot better. And obviously, when you've got the background in and his t-shirt and everything and the reflection from that, then you can understand the way it's drawn better. But that took a long time to do, just to get the skin tones correct on him and get the shading right and the reflections right on his skin. Because obviously, being a black person, it's a different sort of challenge to get the reflection right than it is from a white person. You see more reflections in a black person's skin as you do as a white person. So you obviously see a little bit of red reflected off his t-shirt, and it's just, I like those challenges of getting the flesh tones right. And I think this is probably one of my favourite portraits I've done, because it obviously shows his character through and through his expression, and yeah, that took a while to do as well because of the amount of detail that goes into it. And finally, last but not least, we've got Dr. Julius No, who is the main baddie and the title of the film itself, Dr. No. So I wanted to pick an image because he is a horrible guy. You could easily argue that he is a stereotypical sociopath. He doesn't seem to feel or has no qualms about doing anything that he does to the people either he works with or the people who go against him. And he is a really nasty piece of work. And I just wanted to get a picture, which I remembered, or like a picture in my head that I remember from the film, where it just shows his contempt. The way he walks around, he has a real superiority complex. He's a very clever guy, but he thinks everybody's beneath him, and he's a really horrible man. And I wanted to get a picture of him where the expression and his eyes, he's got these lizard-like unblinking eyes through the film, and you can see him almost looking through Bond like he's something that he's stepped on outside. But yeah, again, it's to get that two-tone flesh look on the actual portrait itself. So from the right side of his face, there's reflections elsewhere, so there's almost like a purple tinge to the right hand side of his head from where other things are reflecting, compared to the left side of his face where they've got different sorts of lights hitting him. And I like doing, again, that challenge. It's just more of a technical challenge to get things like that into a picture, and lots more detail and lighting. It's just playing around with the light and reflection and shadow, but it's just to get that look of absolute hatred and disdain and superiority in his face. And I think that picture of him is perfect for that. And when you watch the film and you see the way he behaves, then it's sort of, well, it sort of speaks for itself, really. And the scene where this is from is where he's in his underground underwater base, so you'll see the blue reflected from the sea, which is, you know, and you can see through the glass at the back. But it just shows you how the different colours come together and the reflections come together. And the pencils I used were absolutely fantastic. So I used a mixture of Caran d'Ache, which I've used for ever really on pictures. And the other one is Faber-Castell. So I used Faber-Castell and I used the Caran d'Ache combined to get that perfect flesh tones. And if you're ever looking at trying to draw really good flesh and skin, I advise that is two of the brands that you look at for your skin tones. Finally, the lettering. So again, in keeping with that 60s look, I looked through some of the Dr. No posters as reference. So I looked at several posters, looked at the lettering, the layout, how they did it, and I obviously wanted to do mine slightly differently. So I did end up picking out some of the lettering that I'd seen on the original posters and doing my own version of that, so that I could put it on there all freehand, apart from a few measurements and a couple of straight lines to use as guidelines. But this is all pretty much freehand lettering. This didn't take an awful long time to do. As long as I've got the shape in there and I've got the shape of the letters right, then just colouring it in is just a case of, it's quite easy. It's just making sure you keep a steady hand and making sure you've got that even coverage of the colours, because you want to make it look bold. You know, a lot of those 60s movie posters have very bold, very bright lettering, and that's what I've done with this one. I wanted it to stand out. So red lettering for the title of Dr. No, and sort of a yellow background to go with it. And obviously the lettering is the ones that you see on some of the older posters. So you've got the James Bond 007 and the 7 as a handgun of some description. It looks like a Luger, but on the original posters and for a while afterwards they tended to use that logo, and they still use it now on updated versions of some of the movie merchandise and posters. But again, this is all done freehand, apart from measuring in the letters and the spacing, etc. Just to give it an authentic look. If you look at some of the movie posters from that time as well, they seem to have a hand drawn quality to it. You know, they don't look like some of the lettering came through on graphic machines or printing presses. Look, I've looked closely at some of the posters and they look like they've actually been drawn or written in by someone who was very, you know, adept at lettering. So there we go. So we've got the James Bond in there, the 007 obviously underneath. I just thought it's something that fills the space nicely, and it was the kind of thing that you'd see on those old James Bond movie posters. And again, it's my own spin on this. I'd looked through a lot of posters and I thought this is the kind of thing that fits best with this, and I'd put a mixture of cast on there as well, so it just gives it that authentic feel. So again, measuring where I need to put the letter in, where I need to put the lines, etc. I'm just cleaning off some of the mess, because obviously using a pencil it rubs off onto the page and there's a bit of shadowing from where other pencil crayons and marks I've got on there. So yeah, again, all freehand. It's not drastically accurate in the sizes of the lettering and the shape of it, but it's good enough to do it on a poster like this. And that is pretty much it. So thanks for watching that. Please like, share and subscribe to Modern Master Art on Facebook and on what am I on now? Facebook, Instagram and TikTok, and I'll be back with another video very soon. And thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.